Okay, so welcome everybody to today's presentation. This is the last part or the last webinar of the five-part series that Steph has been presenting. So we've enjoyed it all along, and we look forward to this presentation. So if you just wanted a few housekeeping things, if you just wanted to keep yourselves on mute while the presentation is going on, then feel free. You can unmute yourself to ask any questions, or if you'd like to use a text chat, you can do that, and I'll watch out for those. And so without any further ado, I just want to introduce Steph, and then I will hand it over to her. So Steph Desrosiers is a business counselor with PARO Center, where she supports women in building financially stable businesses through strategic planning, confidence building, and practical financial literacy. She brings a diverse background that spans corporate law, nonprofit finance, and entrepreneurship. She has worked as an assistant finance manager for a multi-million-dollar nonprofit, managed payroll and accounts payable for construction and service-based businesses, and built operational systems from the ground up. Her experience also includes corporate law administration, contract support, and business compliance, giving her a well-rounded understanding of how financial decisions impact both the numbers and the people behind them. Steph understands firsthand the challenges of cash flow, pricing, scaling, and financial confidence. Her approach is practical, empowering, and grounded in real-world experience, helping women move from overwhelm to clarity and control. So welcome, Steph.
Thank you. Thanks, Lori. Welcome, everyone, to the final of the five-part series on financial empowerment. So today we are just going to be kind of going over some advanced topics, some things that we didn't touch on in the other parts of the series, helpful information to kind of have to know as you're, moving into the next phases of your journey. So I do apologize if my computer is laggy. I had to restart it and it seems to be still a little bit laggy, but if it gets really bad, somebody let me know.
For sure, no problem.
Thank you. Okay, so Lori did a pretty good introduction of me, but I'll just maybe touch on a little bit more of my personal side. So I'm a single mom of two boys. I bring that lived experience into everything that I do. The lived experience being the work experience that I have from my past and current with PARO. I understand the balancing act of wanting to build something meaningful while also managing life's responsibilities. I also love interior design, and I find conversations around personal growth really energizing, the kind that sparks new ideas and helps us grow as people and as professionals. So when I talk about financial readiness, entrepreneurship, basically any of the financial topics in this five-part series, I'm bringing both professional expertise and real life perspective. My goal is to make these topics approachable, practical, and empowering for you. So I do want to preface that I am not an accountant. I am not a lawyer. Any of this information is strictly just for information purposes. It's intended to be just generalized information. If you do need have more specific questions about your financial situation, I do advise you to speak with your accountant or your lawyer if it has to do with your articles of incorporation or anything like that. Okay. So over this series, we're diving into seven advanced financial topics, and each one is designed to help you sharpen your decision-making and strengthen your competitive edge. We'll start with pricing for profit, where we'll look at how to structure your pricing so you can maximize revenue without losing customers. Then we'll move into cash flow mastery, because understanding how to keep cash moving through your business effectively is essential. After that, we'll explore funding pathways, including everything from traditional loans to alternative sources of capital. We'll also cover financial storytelling, which is all about learning how to communicate your numbers in a way that really resonates with stakeholders and investors. And from there, we'll talk about exit strategy and succession, so you can plan ahead for transitions, whether you're thinking about selling, passing the business on, or scaling up. We'll also look at tax planning and deductions with a focus on legitimate strategies to minimize your tax burden and keep more of what you earn. And finally, we'll wrap it up with financial red flags so you can recognize warning signs early and course correct before small problems become big ones. So pricing for profit. So let's start with the elephant in the room, I guess you could say. A lot of businesses leave money on the table because they underprice. And the fear behind that is real, but it usually comes from uncertainty, not from actual market conditions. So today we're going to look at three frameworks that help take the guesswork out of pricing. First is cost-based pricing. So you can't price intelligently unless you know exactly what it costs you to deliver your product or service. And that means more than just materials. It includes labor, rent, utilities, and all hidden overhead that often gets overlooked. Next is markup pricing. Once you know your true costs, you can apply a consistent multiplier so every sale contributes to both overhead and profit. It's simple, clear, and scalable. And then there's value-based pricing, which is where a lot of the real profit potential lives. Here, your price reflects what the customer gains, not just what it costs you to make it. So if a $10 product solves a $1,000 problem, that product can absolutely command a premium price. The key takeaway is this: use cost-based and markup as your floor and use value-based as your ceiling. Then price somewhere in between based on your market conditions and how you want to position yourself. And then I just included this little bit of information. Women-owned businesses generate more than 90 billion in annual revenues in Canada, yet many still underprice their services. Does anybody have any ideas why women tend to underprice their services or their products? Barbara?
Sorry. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing to me because I know men in the same business as me, and they can't believe how little I charge. I think it might have something to do with the nurturing or the people pleasing aspect of being a woman, and something in the psyche. So that's just a few thoughts from me.
Mhm. What about confidence? Just general confidence in the product that you or the service that you're providing. Are you confident that your, $10 product serves a $1,000 problem? That's the kind of question that you would want to ask yourself is, when you're thinking about value-based pricing, what problem does my product or service solve? And is the price tag attached to that? Can I afford to price myself premium? Any questions on that before I move on? Um, Okay, so cash flow mastery. So the reality is profit on paper doesn't mean much if you don't have cash in hand to pay the bills and keep the business running. Cash flow is what separates businesses that survive from businesses that struggle. And it really comes down to discipline and planning. For most businesses, there are seasonal dips and natural cycles. So the goal is to build reserves when business is strong. That way, when the lean months come, you can get through them without panic or unnecessary debt. Payment terms matter too, and this is something you can negotiate. The shorter the gap between invoicing and getting paid, the better your cash position. And if it makes sense, even a small incentive for early payment can help improve cash flow. Then there are receivables, which require consistent follow-up. You can't let invoices slip through the cracks. Getting money in the door is something you have to actively manage and pursue. So it's not really even something that you can let slide probably on a monthly basis. You should really be on top of your receivables every week at least. because that's your lifeline. That's how you're going to succeed. You need to make sure that the money is coming in for the invoices that are being sent out. And so the bottom line is that cash flow mastery may not be glamorous, but it is what makes the difference between a business that thrives and one that only looks profitable on paper. So 1 in 10 majority women-owned businesses reported large revenue decreases between 2023 and 2024, making cash flow planning more critical than ever. Any questions on cash flow mastery? Funding pathways. So capital is definitely out there. You just need to know where to look and how to approach it the right way. There are really 3 main doors to knock on here, with the exception of 2, which are PARO, through PARO. So I'm going to touch on all of them. So first, there are grants and microloans. These are non-dilutive, which means you don't give up equity, which is a big advantage. These opportunities can come through government programs, CDFIs, which are community development financial institutions, and nonprofit lenders like PARO. The process can be competitive, but if you win, it's essentially free money. It's a great path if you're willing to put in the work and navigate the application requirements. So there are angel investors. Has anyone ever heard of angel investors? Yeah. So they're wealthy individuals who are betting on early stage companies. And in return for their capital, they want equity in your business. The upside of that is they often bring more than money. They can also open doors through connections and mentorship. This can be a great fit if you're comfortable giving up some ownership in exchange for support and growth capital. And then there's crowdfunding. Those are platforms like Kickstarter, GoPeer, Indiegogo. They let you raise funds while also testing whether the market actually wants what you're building. So in a sense, your customers become your investors. It's a powerful way to validate demand, and it usually has a lower barrier to entry than traditional funding. And another option that's really unique to PARO is the Prosper Circles program that we have. So it's a community-based micro-lending model, similar in spirit to crowdfunding, but it's structured through PARO with real loan support. And what makes it especially accessible is that it's designed to grow with you through 4 stages. So you'll see down in the corner, I've included a little bit of the information that goes along with each stage. So the first and the second stage, you can borrow up to a total of $1,000 on the first stage and $2,000 in the second stage. And half of that is non-repayable. So really, on the $1,000 loan, you're only having to pay back the $500. On the $2,000, only having to pay back $1,000. On the third and the fourth stage, they don't do the half non-repayable. The entire amount is repayable, but it's just a really good way to access some money if you need it, and it's very informal. Our PARO circles, how they go about determining who is eligible for receiving the money. So you discuss it amongst the women in your circle, and everybody agrees, and you kind of move forward with getting your loan. So you have to start at the first stage, which is the $1,000, and then half of that loan, like I said, is non-repayable. Your monthly payment just $60 over 9 months, so very affordable. And once you've completed that stage, then you move up to the second stage. So basically, you have to complete and fully repay each stage before you can move up to the next one. So if you're just starting out or need a smaller amount of capital in a supportive, women-centered environment, that is a fantastic place to begin. And then we also have our WEOC funding. So PARO is the official Ontario partner for the Women's Enterprise Organization of Canada. So this is a national funding source. And our loans department is ready to help you strengthen your business plan so that you have the best possible chance at securing funding. So these loans are up to 50,000, and they can be used for a multitude of things for startups or even expansions for your business. The key takeaway is that each pathway comes with different requirements and trade-offs. The right choice depends on where your business is at, how comfortable you are with giving up equity, and what you're building. Any questions on any of these funding pathways? Okay. So numbers alone won't convince anyone. You have to tell the story behind them. That's what moves investors, motivates teams, and builds trust in your businesses. There are a few key ways this shows up. When you're pitching for investment, focus on revenue, growth rate, and unit economics. Those are the numbers that help investors see that you understand your business model and have a clear path to profitability. When you're reporting, keep stakeholders, partners, and lenders informed with clear, honest updates on performance. Transparency goes a long way toward building confidence. And when you're advocating for your business, remember that your numbers are your credibility. Use them to access funding programs, negotiate better terms with vendors or lenders, and show that you're a serious operator. The main takeaway is that financial storytelling isn't about manipulating the data. It's about presenting your numbers in a way that helps other people understand why your business matters and where it's headed. So 20% of all Canadian businesses are now majority women-owned. That's up from 15.6% in 2017. So the story is changing. Okay, so every business has an endpoint, and the key is to plan proactively so you can control the outcome and maximize value. For a sale, clean financials and well-documented systems are huge value multipliers because buyers want clarity and confidence. So it's worth getting organized now, even if you're not planning to sell tomorrow. When you think about retirement, make sure you understand how your business equity fits into your overall picture. Is this your nest egg? When do you need the liquidity? Those are important questions to answer early so you can plan accordingly. And if you're thinking about succession, whether that means passing the business to family or bringing in external leadership, a documented transition plan is critical. It protects your legacy and helps ensure continuity. The bottom line is that early planning gives you options. Don't wait until you're forced to exit on someone else's timeline. So you would want to work with a lawyer on succession planning or just making sure that you have everything in order so that when that time comes, that you're not kind of backtracking, trying to fill gaps and find financials, and not to mention the headache that it would probably be. Your business would be probably a little bit chaotic if you were going backwards trying to produce all of this at a later date. So it would be very telling of, I guess, how successful your business was if you didn't have these systems in place from the beginning. So yeah, it benefits you in the day-to-day, but it also benefits you in the long term. Sorry, go ahead, Barbara.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. I hope I haven't jumped the gun on your presentation here, but I have a question around this, which is I'll use myself as an example. I'm a sole proprietor. I am the business. And is there some sort of system for business owners where you can share the information you have in case something happens before sale or retirement transition or succession handoff? Have you ever seen anything like that? Almost like how do you share the information that you have currently, like all my passwords, my accounts receivable? Is there a system in place for that?
In my experience, and any of the companies that I'm familiar with where they have transitioned to new ownership, it kind of is like a hard reset. So like things like passwords and such, that would all get changed. You would maybe still use the same system, like maybe you're using a CRM. And maybe the new ownership may decide to continue to use that, so that can be transferred over. But in terms of like your financials, you would definitely want to have like your bookkeeping software. So that would be easy for them to access, like everything like that. But your passwords and things like that, I don't think you would need to necessarily hand over every password that you have. They would probably likely be creating new accounts and things like that anyway. So they would make their own passwords. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking more along the lines, and I know many solo entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
women who, we work on our business. We're the ones, we are the business basically. So I'm thinking more along the lines of how do we prepare if something happens to us? Not, do you know what I mean? Like, what's our
Yes.
backup? Is there any training? And maybe this would be a good training to have around like a backup system because I don't even know where to start other than to hand my niece my
Well, I think
password.
that really all falls under succession planning. So this would be like, having all of your like I see what you're saying. Like,
Hmm.
I think that that would all fall under succession planning. And I think that does raise the question of maybe we need to do a deeper dive into that and what
Hmm.
all would succession planning entail. So ensuring that, whoever is taking over has access to everything. What if something happened to you,
Yeah.
and
Well,
you're in a situation where you're incapacitated?
and it's not a question of, it might not even be a question of taking over, but finishing off, right? Like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I would be interested definitely if something like that was held by PARO. I think it would be really helpful.
Well,
And
I'll
this is
mention
good too. Like you say, the succession, that's a really good access point there. But yeah, thank you.
I think it just requires a little bit of a deeper dive. And I think I do agree with you. That's something I will bring forward to Roz and see if she agrees that we should maybe do a webinar on succession planning. And maybe we do have somebody that has done a webinar on that before that we would utilize. I'm not sure, but if not, I can certainly put together something as well so that we can all be more informed on succession planning.
Thank
No problem. Any more questions on any of that from anyone? No? Okay. So tax planning is a legitimate strategy. It's not tax evasion. It's really about making sure you keep what you're legally entitled to keep. When it comes to write-offs, there are a lot of common deductions worth knowing about, like home office space, vehicle expenses, equipment and software purchases, and professional development. The important thing is to understand which expenses actually qualify in your specific situation. And tax planning works best when you stay ahead of it throughout the year. Don't wait and scramble in April. Regular estimated payments and proactive planning can help you avoid big surprises and penalties. And finally, the foundation of good tax planning is solid documentation. Keep your receipts, organize your records, and make sure your expense classifications stay clean from day one. That way, if you're ever audited, you're protected and you can feel confident in your numbers. So I think like the probably the overarching message of all of these financial empowerment series that we've done is really about record keeping. How important it is to make sure that you have good record keeping, that you have your bookkeeping software, probably something that you can see how profitable the business is, something that's generating reports for you, unless you know how to do that in Excel and make those kinds of spreadsheets, that would work too. But um, record keeping is the biggest part of success in entrepreneurship. There are also 7 critical warning signs that financial trouble may be ahead, and the key is to catch them early. The first is consistent negative cash flow month after month. Then there's the situation where revenue looks like it's growing, but profits are actually shrinking. And another big red flag is relying too heavily on one client, especially if that client makes up more than half of your revenue. Mounting debt without a clear repayment strategy is another warning sign. As is regularly skipping your own salary just to keep the business going. It's also important to watch for missing or outdated financial records because if the books aren't current, it's much harder to see what's really happening. And finally, pay attention to inventory or costs creeping up without being tracked. The big message here is that most business failures aren't sudden surprises. They're usually predictable, if you know what you're looking for. And if you're seeing two or more of these patterns, that's not something to monitor passively. You need to take action now. The sooner you spot these signs, the more time you have to course correct before things turn into a crisis. So if anybody is comfortable sharing, does anybody have any of these red flags currently? Well, as long as that's a no red flags, that's awesome. And if you are experiencing them, like book in with a business counselor at PARO, talk to PARO, talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer if you have one. Call the CRA, make sure that you are aware of, like what the CRA requirements are specific to your business. So, just make sure that you're talking to the right people, that you're getting the right support, and that you're working on correcting it. So learning only really sticks when people get a chance to apply it. So now we're moving from theory into practice. We have 3 hands-on exercises designed to connect these pricing and cash flow concepts directly to your business. First, you'll work through a real service pricing scenario. You'll compare 3 approaches side by side: cost-based pricing, markup pricing, and value-based pricing. I can go over this again. I'll just kind of give the overview. And the goal is to see just how different these methods can be and to help you think about which ones actually make the most sense for your situation. Next, we'll move into a cash flow scenario. Imagine you're facing a 90-day cash crunch and the slow season hits hard. You'll map out what's happening to your cash and then identify 3 specific levers you could actually pull to survive and recover. This is meant to push you to think strategically, not just reactively. And then we'll finish with pitch practice. You'll pick your 3 most compelling financial metrics, the ones that really tell your business story, and then turn them into a tight 60-second narrative. This is the kind of thing you'd actually say to a lender, investor, or key stakeholder. Each exercise should take just maybe we'll do 5 minutes for each exercise. And then by the end, you'll be walking away with something you can actually use immediately. Okay. So right here, pricing simulation. So how would you price this service? You offer a 2-hour home organizing consultation. Your materials cost $20. Your time is worth $40 an hour, and your overhead per session is $15. A competitor charges $150. Clients who hire you typically save 5+ hours of stress per week. So as you walk through this exercise, yeah, I guess I'll give you a couple minutes. Do we want, like, I would like to try to maybe do this. I don't know how many people are in the group collaboratively. We have a few people. I'll give you a couple minutes to kind of like figure out if you know what the total for the cost base and the markup and the value base is, and then we'll go over it together, and then we'll move on to the next exercise. So I'll just give you a couple minutes. Does anyone care to share what the cost-based price is? So the total cost, as it states right here, is $20. And then the time is $40 an hour. And I believe it said 2 hours. So there's $80. So there's $100 so far that we're up to with for the cost. And then the overhead for the session, overhead for the session is 15. So our cost base total is 115. So that means that $115 is your floor, and you should never ever price below that. Anyone want to take a stab at the markup? So if you're using a 30% margin, you can think of it as 115 divided by 0.70, which comes out to about $164. Or if you want to keep it simple, 115 times 1.30 gets you roughly 150. Either way, the point is that this approach covers your costs and also builds in profit. So we had $115, which was our floor for our cost. And our markup, we bumped it up to 150, which is 1.3 times, sorry, not 1.3 times, it's 115 times 1.30. And then we move on to value-based pricing. So the client is saving 5 or more hours of stress every week. So the real question is that outcome worth it to them? If their time is worth $30 to $50 an hour, that's about $150 to $250 a week in recovered time, which makes a premium price of $175 to $250 completely reasonable. And since the competitor is charging $150, that gives you a helpful reference point. You can match that, or you can go above it if your value is clear. So people will instinctively anchor to the cost-based number of 115 and then underprice themselves. So what we really want you to do is see that value-based pricing is where the real profit lives. So in this case, the competitor's $150 is actually more of a floor than a ceiling. Any questions on this pricing simulation exercise? Okay, so let's walk through this as a cash flow reality check. Right now, you've got $4,200 in the bank and $3,000 in bills coming due in the next 30 days. So if nothing changes, you'd still have about $1,200 left after those bills are paid. But there's another $2,800 sitting in outstanding invoices, which means the real issue isn't solvency, it's timing. If those invoices don't come in, you're looking at $1,200 in cash and 6 weeks with no new income ahead of you. The first lever is to increase cash in, and this is usually the fastest place to start. So follow up on both outstanding invoices immediately, because even collecting one of them, that's $1,400, changes the picture pretty significantly. You can also offer a small early payment incentive, like 5% off if they pay within 5 days. Another option is to run a January promotion, pre-sell a spring package at a discount, or reach out to past clients with a book now, save 10% offer to fill the calendar quickly. So the target here is to recover at least $1,400 to $2,800 within 2 weeks. So the second lever is to reduce cash out. That means reviewing every subscription and pausing anything non-essential right away. It also means deferring discretionary spending like supplies, equipment, or marketing. If you can, negotiate better payment terms with suppliers. For example, asking for net 60 instead of net 30. Even a short-term reduction of 300 to 500 can buy you some breathing room while the incoming cash catches up. So this is kind of takes us back to the cash versus accrual, the way that your bookkeeping software is kind of pulling your information. So if it's going as accrual, it knows that you have outstanding invoices and it's kind of including that in your profits. And cash is what's actually been paid to you. So knowing the difference between cash and accrual can help you, just so you know where you're sitting. If you specifically with cash, you probably want to mostly look at that through a cash lens. So the third lever is to buy time. So this could mean calling the landlord that you rent your building from, because most people would rather have a conversation than discover a missed payment. It might also mean talking to your lender about a short-term line of credit or a payment deferral, or checking with your accountant about any flexibility on tax installments. The big message here is that early conversations create options. Once you miss a payment, those options shrink fast. So it's better to say something ahead of time than, to let it go as a missed payment without saying anything. If you're choosing a first move, the best answer is to follow up on invoices today. It's the fastest lever and usually the one with the biggest immediate impact. And the key insight for you is that this is not a panic situation. It's a triage situation. So I'm helping you to see that 4,200 plus 2,800 in receivables gives you 7,000 in potential cash. The challenge is timing, not whether the business is viable. That's a very different conversation. Has anybody had to pull any of these levers at any point in time in their business? I'll share with you at one point in time, I was a corporate law clerk working at a law firm, and we were, like every law firm, very behind in receivables, not really, chasing payments. And so my boss had come to me and he knew that I was pretty good at collecting receivables. And he said, listen, if you can bring in, I can't remember what it was, let's just say 20,000 in the next week in receivables, I'll give you a $500 bonus on your paycheck. And I think I brought in more than what he asked. So, there's always, employees that are motivated to do it for you if you have staff. There's always like ways of going about bringing in that cash. You certainly don't want to get into the habit as much as you can of writing off bad debt. That doesn't look good on the books year after year. So if you are, constantly writing off bad debt, I would say it's time to look at look at the situation and troubleshoot maybe a different approach, so that you are maybe not working for people who, how do you ensure that you're going to get paid, I think is where I'm going with that. Don't work for people who aren't paying you. Any more questions on the cash flow scenario? Or any more questions? Any questions? Okay, so this is a pitch practice. In fact, we've been quiet, so I don't know if nobody is this one's a little bit more collaborative, so I'm just wondering if maybe we should just skip this one. I can kind of go through it though. So a strong number is one that is clear and concrete. So you have choose 3 numbers that best represent your business: revenue, growth rate, customers served, cost savings, or any metric that tells a compelling story, then build a narrative around it. So choose 3 metrics that matter most. So this could be any of the ones that were listed: revenue, growth rate, customers served, cost savings. And then kind of building a little bit of a story. So we serve 783 clients, generating $47,760 in revenue with a 43% growth year over year. That kind of is like, a very short narrative, but it's very telling. It has all the very like high level information that when you're pitching investors, that's the information that they would want to know right away. So let's see. People sometimes choose numbers that sound impressive but don't really mean much without context. So like 10,000 social media followers. They may also stay vague or apologetic, saying things like, we're still small, and sometimes they share data without connecting it to a story, which means it doesn't really land. So the reminder here is that numbers matter most when they help to tell a story. So if you're ever doing a pitch, make sure that you're including actual numbers that tell an actual story of your business. Any questions on pitching to investors? Okay, well, that was all of the extra information that I had to share for the 5-part financial empowerment series. Yeah, we're done a little bit earlier than noon.
I think there's a lot of great information in there.
Well, yeah, you know what? Of all of them, I kind of liked this one the most.
Right?
But I think yeah, a lot of great information. All of them were very, not just great information, important information,
Exactly.
information that helps you in your business so that you're successful. And finances is really the make or break it part of business. So, yeah.
Well, I didn't see any other questions in the chat, or there was no questions in the chat, sorry. But if you don't have any other questions, I guess we could wrap it up. But like I said, this is a lot of information there. So sometimes it takes time to process it, and you'll walk away with it and think, oh, what was that one? I could definitely use the support of a PARO circle or something,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean, or a loan from wherever, right? So definitely keep it in mind, and maybe it might not be something that you would do or need right now, but maybe down the road. And yeah, we're always here to help. So thank you for joining us today. And thanks, Steph, for presenting this. I really appreciate you putting this all together.
Yeah, of course. And if there's, anybody that reaches out to you, Lori, that's like, hey, I have a question about something from the financial empowerment series, like don't hesitate to forward that to me. I'm always available to answer questions as best as I can.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
of
thank you.
course.
All right. Well, thanks everybody again for joining us and wishing everybody a wonderful day.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.